cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well. Welcome, my friends, to this fine radio program known to the many and the few as Smoking and Toasting. We're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, and, of course, by their sister establishment, B&B Lemon, which is now across the street from B&B on Washington Ave in Houston.
We need to go hang out there and find out if Lemon has the same bacon appetizer.
I don't know that they do. I think they may have
bacon appetizer
at B&B. Oh, my God.
It's so good it'll make you take back stuff you didn't even steal.
It's really unbelievable. Welcome to show number 118, and is this our last show before Christmas? It is.
It is.
So this is going to be a very festive type of occasion because, and we're really excited about this, we've been wanting to have these guys on for quite some time now. We have guests from Whitmeyer's on the show today, and it's Stuart and Travis from Whitmeyer's Distillery in Houston, Texas. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, first whiskey distillery in Houston, is that correct?
The first in Harris County.
First in Harris County.
We are technically.
So there's a thing, huh?
There's a thing. We're technically just outside of the city limits.
Oh, well,
so you get to 1960, which is about 100 yards.
Yeah.
You're in the city, so
that's a
just
technicality.
outside.
That's unless you're talking about.
Well, we are the oldest in the county.
Yeah, unless you're talking about paying taxes, that's a technicality. You're the oldest in Houston. So.
Yeah, that was the best piece of advice I got when opening the distillery was stay out
of the city from a tax standpoint, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
there's enough regulation.
That doesn't surprise me. Well, welcome to the show. We'll be tasting some Whitmeyers, and they brought in like white label stuff. So I'll just show this to the camera. They brought in two with them. They're already sitting here on the countertop, and both of them are the kind where they write stuff in, and I always love that. I always think
it just looks a little more handcrafted.
This is going to be good. So we'll let them tell us about that as the program goes on. Update for you on the FDA and cigar regulations, which seems like an ongoing thing. Every week we seem to have some new information on that, so we'll be sharing that with you. Plus, we're. I just got to say this, man. I'm really excited about next week's show. It's Ian's Crazy Beer Show.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. I've got some beers selected for that.
Ian was basically banned from being able to bring beers to the show for a while. And so he's had all these beers collecting in his refrigerator. So we just decided, let's do it that, that you really wanted to bring in.
This stems from an episode where he goes, just bring the beers for the show and I won't worry about it. I said, okay. So I brought what I thought was a nice selection of beers.
We generally taste 3 beers.
They all started at about 8%.
No, they didn't all start at 8%. One of them started at 8%. So. And then one was what?
Like 18, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
There you go.
I like big beers.
He brought a beer that actually was chewy. And I don't mean that as a description of how thick it was. I mean it had chunks in it. Actual chewable chunks.
So Harvestdale was quite good.
Yes. So I'm expecting more of the same next week for Ian's Crazy Beer Show. And then the week after that, which will be the first show of the brand new year, we're going to be talking about the best of 2018. All the best of cigar lists are starting to hit.
You know what Alan Denny just posted on Facebook? Right?
What's that?
That their EP Carrillo hit Cigar of the Year from Cigar Aficionados.
Yeah, the number one on the list. Yeah, it was the Encore, and it's just. Well, we'll talk about it, and we'll obviously.
Congratulations to those guys.
Yeah, and Alan, of course, was our guest last week, along with Jose Blanco from EP Carrillo. We were live out at Maduro's in League City, and just had a wonderful time.
That show was a blast.
That show was wonderfulness.
And I accidentally left the beers that I brought for that show, just to have in between.
Did you?
Yes.
Did you leave them?
You know this because you drank the rest of them.
Did you leave them at Maduro's? Somehow those all wound up in my refrigerator.
As long as you use them for good and not for evil,
yes,
I think I'm okay with
it. I was good with it. Yeah, I was good with it. So a lot going on. We are going to be tasting, in addition to some things by Whitmeyer's, which I don't even know. I don't even know exactly what they've brought, so we'll get to that in a few minutes. But we're also going to be tasting some beers. We're very Texas-oriented today, beer-wise, because the first beer we'll be tasting is from Community Beer Company, which is out of Dallas. It's their Snicker Doodle Ale. not a Christmas ale specifically, but I thought it was the perfect vibe. Maybe it's because my wife always makes
Snickerdoodles
Snickerdoodles
are good.
for Christmas.
They're good year round. However, they generally make me think of Christmas.
Yeah, okay, so perfect. I'm not way
Plus,
off base.
that's
there.
a fun word to say.
Snickerdoodle.
Yeah.
All right. So haven't tasted this. I don't know how it works, but we'll get to that. We'll try it. And then also from Dallas, the Texas Ale Project 100 Million Angels Singing Double IPA, which I thought was a perfect, again, Christmas reference.
That's got a lot to stand up to, though. Like,
Yeah.
if you're
I
gonna
know.
call it that. That
Yeah.
should be good.
It better be, right? With a name like that. And finally, one that we brought last week, but we didn't make it to because Alan Denny had brought all those crazy ass beers from Southern
Yeah,
Star,
from Southern Star, right.
which were just fantastic. And by the way, I still have one of them in my refrigerator that he gave me, which I'm saving.
That we didn't try on the show.
I'm saving until you come over. So
Awesome.
But Prairie Artisan Ales Paradise Imperial Stout brewed with coconut and vanilla will be our final beer. So that's what
Prairie makes great beer.
That's what you'll be having to top next week, Ian, with the crazy.
One of the
show.
beers I'm planning on doing is a Prairie beer.
Oh, see, that's going to be good. So it's a crazy week. We got all kinds of things going on. We talked about the top cigars of the year. That show is a couple of weeks away, but all the lists are starting to come out. So what we're doing is we're compiling them for you, and not only will we have them on the show, but we'll have easy links in the notes to all the lists so that you can find out what the big ones were. And I was thinking of Alan Denny, our buddy from EP Carrillo, because their lives are about to change. When you get that number one listing, like everything shifts for you. You start getting requests from shops
Big
that aren't
time.
carrying your product. You start getting more requests for the product because it's selling off the
Cigar
shelves.
Aficionado is such a well-respected publication.
Yes,
for
it
that
is.
as well.
Yes,
and
it is.
Deservedly so. That and congratulations to them. That's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is
and
really,
an amazing
really big
cigar
deal.
as well.
Really, really big deal. Also, we'll try to get to this today. 20 great gifts for craft beer lovers in case you're doing some last-minute Christmas shopping, and the Ian or Cruz name on your list has not been filled yet. So
Yes, and you can find our address pretty easily.
yes, it's not that difficult to do. So so like I said, it's been a crazy week, Ian. I love to ask you this, and we haven't for the last couple of weeks because we've been smoking at the locales on the show, but
Which has been a blast.
Yeah, which has been awesome. But did you smoke anything interesting this week?
Yes.
Oh, I like this. What'd you have?
I just wanted to do the NPR lean there for a moment.
I do that again.
I was at a friend of mine's house last night, hanging out, and they had like the top Christmas Saturday Night Live skits, and one of them was the two
one of
girls
them was
with
the two girls.
NPR
Yeah.
show that's
is that the
hilarious.
Sweaty Balls
Yes,
episode?
that's
Yes. Oh, that's the best.
absolutely
That's the best one
hilarious.
ever. Alec Baldwin. Awesome.
Anyway, so, on from Sweaty Balls. So I, last night and hanging out with my same friends, I smoked a classic, My Father. I don't know if I've ever. We've talked about My Father, but I don't know if I've ever reviewed just a straight up My Father.
Well, we were supposed to have Tom Poehler's brother,
Yes,
Jason,
yes.
from My Father on several weeks ago, and he wound up getting sick at the last minute, asked Tom to pinch it for him.
Yeah, we're gonna
which
have
was
to get him back on.
great.
Tom was so fun.
We
too.
will reschedule Jason.
So
yes.
I went and just had this. It was one of those where I looked in my humidor and I thought, you know what, I hadn't had one of those in so long, and they're so good because I tend to run over stuff that's too familiar a lot of times. Try something different.
Right.
Sometimes an old standby is a good one to go to, but I don't know that I've ever actually reviewed one on here. This cigar, if I remember correctly, and I didn't look this up, so please don't hold me to it, I'm pretty sure it's about an $8 cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to put that out there right off the top. The one that I had was the Torpedo.
It's 8 to 10, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right in that range, and so it's a premium cigar. It's not super premium, and it's been out for a long time.
Mm-hmm. This is like the earlier
the
releases.
The pre-light sniff on this thing smells so sweet and nutty kind of flavors with earthy kind of flavors to it. The pre-light draw on this, I snipped the end. The pre-light draw on this thing was absolutely like flawless. Just enough resistance to make you feel like you have something substantial and it's not going to smoke too fast.
Mm-hmm.
The burn on this thing, I'm going to go ahead and jump straight to the end of this cigar. The burn on this thing was perfect down to where I didn't want to let this cigar go even though it was burning my fingers. The cigar itself, the first third, the initial light on this was absolutely fantastic. Nice, a little bit spicy. A little bit big at first, settles into a chocolatey, toasty kind of thing going on. This is a Rosado wrapper, the Habano Rosado wrapper, and Nicaraguan filler, Nicaraguan binder. And it just, like the whole first third of this cigar is just this toasty, chocolatey sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
The second third of this cigar is more of the same with more of the chocolate notes. We had, I was drinking 1836 with it, which was a great pairing.
Nice.
Like, what a great beer. That's a local Buffalo Bayou.
Mm-hmm.
They call their copper ale.
That's their copper ale.
Yeah, it's just outstanding. And
I always go to the bar and I go, can you give me that copper ale that's from that year that I don't remember? And they go, 1836? Yeah, that's the one.
You're not from Texas. Sorry. Anyway. So yeah, and that between that and shots of Jameson's and playing Cards Against Humanity, we had just a great time with the cigar.
That's a fun game.
By the last third of the cigar, I forgot how much of a chocolate bomb it turns into.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this great chocolatey with a little bit of spice. Just a fantastic cigar from end to end. My father's cigars, I've never been disappointed by anything with their name on it.
No.
This cigar gets a 6 easy on the price to quality index. And for those of you who don't know the price to quality index, we have a 1 to 10 scale. And if you're at 5, you get exactly what you're paying for on it. This goes
So 5's a great.
Yeah, 5 is
Five's a great rating.
Anything below means I might have paid a little much for this. Anything above means it's punching above its weight class, so to speak.
And that you would have been okay had you paid a bit more.
Yeah,
right?
and if I paid $12 for that cigar, I'd have walked out of there going, it was just fine.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a great cigar.
That's
for
a
that price.
perfect rating. Then.
How about you, sir?
I had something that I had not had before, which is the Crowned Heads J.D. Howard Reserve. Now I had some of their other some Crowned Heads other cigars. Found them quite tasty, quite delicious. This one was a Brazilian wrapper, Ecuadorian Sumatra binder, and the fillers were all Nicaraguan. To start out, it was a really nice looking cigar. I have a tendency. I guess I'm kind of a cigar beauty snob because when I'm
Crowned Heads makes beautiful.
Right. When I'm looking for cigars that I haven't tried before and I'm in the humidor, I have a tendency to only pick the really pretty ones. I don't know what that says about me. It's some sort of vanity thing.
Well,
I'm
in Crowned Heads, their whole line,
Yeah.
they have the gorgeous wrapping.
But it was really pretty. The pre-light on it was woodsy, some tobacco notes, not anything like really unusual. I used a V-cutter. It lit right up. Loved that it had nice flavor even in the first half inch. We talked about this, I think, last week. That some cigars take that first half inch, almost an inch even at times, to sort of warm up and blossom and give you the flavor.
Right.
This one hit it right from the very beginning. Was creamy. There were some cocoa notes, a bit of spice and pepper. None of this is like earth-shattering or new. You've come to expect a little bit of pepperiness from Nicaraguan tobacco, I think. But it was really, really nice. There was a good amount of complexity. It wasn't a pepper bomb. It was there. It was on the tongue, but it wasn't a pepper bomb. As far as power, I'd say it was a solid medium. I'd read that this was a full-bodied cigar. I went on looking to see what people were saying about it, and I'd read that it was full-bodied, but it didn't really strike me that way. It was just a very nice medium. I liked it. About a $10 cigar. I'm going to give it a solid 5. I mean, maybe almost even a 5.5. Like, I wouldn't have minded paying just a little more, but I wouldn't. If it were 15, I'd have been a little disappointed. So, again, comparing to what's out there that's in that price range. So anyway, but I recommend it. Crowned Heads J.D. Howard Reserve. When you're in that $10 price range, it's a good one. You won't be disappointed. So, all right, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm really excited about getting into the second segment. When we come back, we're going to try a little bit of Whitmeyer's as well as start tasting our beers. And guys, do you have a sense of where we're going first from a tasting standpoint?
So we'll start with the lower proof offering. They're both the same, essentially the same product we can get into.
Okay, all right, very good. We're looking forward. You did great in the first segment, by the way. Thank you so much.
Just keep it up.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
All right, we'll be right back, and we'll be talking Whitmeyer's and what it's like to be the first distillery in Harris County. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting.
Awesome.
Show beer went quick, huh?
Yeah. welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, and this is show number 118. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Whitmeyer's small batch whiskey in the studio today, and we're very excited to be doing some tasting there in just a few moments. My friends, the show is brought to you by our good friends at B&B Butchers and Restaurant. They are in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. They're also at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and we say it every week: bacon, bacon, bacon. You got to go. You got to try it. It's life changing. It's
They have
absolutely.
two variations of bacon too. They have the regular bacon, which is the Chef Tommy's bacon.
And then they've got this other kind that I don't remember the name of it. That's amazing,
It's just absolutely ridiculous.
like a lamb bacon or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, wow, it's mind blowing. Hey, the latest update on the whole deal about the cigar regulations. The people who are pushing for the exemption of premium cigars from this tobacco legislation that's already basically been passed. These are the good guys.
By the
Those with
people who
white
are
hats.
pushing for this exemption, you mean Rocky
The
Patel?
Yeah, Rocky Patel.
Like, he's always up in the middle of all of
our
that.
friends from Cigar Rights of America. These guys, the guys in the white hats, the good
Absolutely,
guys,
yeah.
right?
Trayvon.
These are the guys. So they're pushing for this. They have managed to get, with the cooperation of the senators and congressmen who are sympathetic to this cause, because it's going to have some really bad implications for the cigar industry. It's going to put people out of work. There's a whole lot of different things that's bad about it. But anyway, they have got this amendment attached to the budget bill. And so the budget bill remains this whole thing. What's happening now is that Congress is working to pass a temporary budget bill, which will give them more time to debate the big one, but the government won't run out of money. So likely this is not going to get decided officially until after the first of the year. In the meantime, the cigar rights people have been able to successfully petition the FDA, which is now in control of regulating cigars. And the FDA has agreed to indefinitely delay the restrictions on warning labels. So what this means, the restrictions that the warning label had to cover 1/3 of the cigar or 1/3 of the cigar's packaging, if it's a box of cigars or like a bundle of cigars. That was going to be the new regulation. The FDA has agreed to indefinitely delay that the implementation of that.
Now, have you heard about this at all?
I have not.
Can you
I've
imagine
heard-
the FDA saying, okay, 1/3 of your packaging, no matter
a
what
third
you
of
do,
your bottle has to be covered with a
has to be
warning label
covered with
that
a
says
warning label.
this stuff isn't good for you. I mean, seriously.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have our own challenges.
Yeah, right. I believe you do, and we can talk about those too. So that's the update. We'll keep you posted as things develop. I like to.
that's at least good news right now.
it's a
yes.
piece of good news, and we'll take any good news that we can get. So speaking of good news, we are very excited to have Stuart and Travis from Whitmeyer's in the studio. Gentlemen, welcome officially. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Now, you were responsible for helping to establish the distillery in the first place. Is that right?
That was my idea.
It was your
Sure.
thing. It was your thing.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a-
Well,
yeah.
yeah. I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but that's basically you started this bad boy.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
And how many years ago?
Let's see, April 26, 2012. So
Okay.
coming up on 7 years.
So this is before. I mean, not that whiskey hasn't been a thing for a while, but this is before the little boomlet that's going on right now, wasn't it?
It's just gone absolutely bananas.
Yeah. Did you see this coming? Was this part of your?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So you just did this because this was something you were passionate about, wanted to do it, and
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely,
your timing was impeccable, sir. Was it a difficult thing to do? I mean, now you could at least maybe look at some others who have done it and have a little bit of a roadmap maybe to follow, but.
Sure, and the numbers, I won't throw them out there because I don't know them exactly, but I'll ballpark it for you. If all-time distilleries in the United States, we came in and ours was in the area of 350th permit ever issued from
For
the federal
distilleries.
government.
Wow.
Yeah.
Today we're, I believe, at 2,000.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, so
slightly,
what year
give or
did you-
take a few, but that's happened in that short amount of time.
What year did you submit yours?
It was 2012.
Wow.
So
That's unbelievable.
So based on what you've seen so far since opening in 2012, is the sort of craft whiskey and small distillery boom, is it winding up being a good thing from a sales standpoint because of how much more interest it is, or does it make it harder because there's so much more competition?
We're selling more than everything we can make. I don't.
That's a good position to be in.
When you pose those kinds of questions about what everybody else is doing, we just kind of do our own thing.
That's cool.
It's been interesting to watch, and
yeah.
Every time I turn around, there's a new one, and good for them. And
well, when I'm in a Specs or any other place where you go in and buy these, there's just so much now. It's like you're looking around going, wow, it's almost like buyer's paralysis. And that's one of the reasons that we like, having guys like you come on the show. We can talk about these things. We can, talk about the flavors and talk about what the styles are and maybe help people know, if it's something that they might want to remember and look at when they're standing in those shelves.
As a consumer, it's a little difficult to just go try stuff unless because like a lot of these companies, you guys do, I'm sure, like up at the local stores, you hand out samples and things like that, which is very helpful if you're there at the right time at the right place. But something like what we do, where we can get a lot of these flavors in and talk about them. You can narrow it down a lot of times, listeners, and go, I like stuff like this. I'll go try that.
I've been in the stores when some of the sampling's done, and there have been times when I've gone, oh, that's going to help me. Yes, I'm going to buy some of that. There's also been times when it's helped me decide what I was not going to buy.
Yes.
That happens too. So it really just depends on what you're looking for and who's there at the time. Now, Stuart, your job at the distillery is
pretty much day-to-day operations.
Yeah,
running tastings, tours.
Right. So you're responsible for kind of getting the word out, passing along what this is all about. You're on the operational side of things. Is that
correct?
Right? Now, what have you seen in terms of the way that people have received you? Has that changed as over the years, or have people always been crazy about stuff, or has it grown?
Pretty much all the in-house 100% juice done in-house. We just can't keep on the shelves, can't produce it fast enough. As soon as it opens, it's gone.
So is that, and I mean this is a very serious question, is that a good thing? In other words, is that a place you want to be, where everything you make you sell out of, or would you really prefer to be able to meet more demand? Which is better?
Well, I think I don't. One being better than the other. I mean, of course, I love it when people tell me that they love my stuff. And it's just you got to find that balance. Our biggest problem is production, the production side of it. Earlier this year, we added 2 new stills, which about tripled our production capacity, so hopefully we'll be able to solve some of that.
How long, though, will it be before any of that sees store shelves?
We're still probably a year out.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know how much of it we can actually get to the store. I mean, a lot of it, we get crowds at the distillery, and Texas is, back in 2013, we were able to get the legislation changed to where we were able to sell and serve limited quantities of bottles and mixed beverages on site.
Right.
Prior to that, we could only offer you a little half-ounce sample. And until we have it sitting at the distillery so long that it just needs to overflow into the stores, it doesn't make sense to sell to a store for half the price.
But these are the kinds of problems to have, right?
Sure. Right.
Yeah. I totally get it. Did you, when you started this, did you know anything about distilling already? Did you have any background in this, or is this something you learned as you went?
For the most part, self-taught. I kind of got into it back in 2002, 2003. My brother and I were in the Army and stationed in Germany. We joined up together, and we were stationed in Germany. I was dating a local girl over there, and her family lived on a little farm in Bavaria. The grandfather was retired, and he made schnapps and brandies and beers and wines, and I just thought it was really cool.
So
spent a lot of time over there.
You got interested in the process of it, even if it wasn't whiskey, right?
Oh, I was becoming a pretty good lush, too.
Yeah, yeah, you're a long way from home. It's like, yeah, absolutely. So why was it whiskey for you when you decided what you were going to do?
Oh, we don't do just whiskey. We have a
Right.
vodka.
Right.
We have a gin. We've done some kind of one-off things as well. Right now, we've got some pear brandy aging that we did with some local pears that a buddy brought. So it's really, we just have the stills, but for me, it's more about aged spirits. I can get into all the different types of whiskeys or fruit-based mashes as well, which I see kind of trending up. So
Absolutely.
that's kinda
There's so many interesting trends going on right
Yeah.
now, but it's kind of like everything is trending up, and some stuff. You talk about how much hotter rums are than they were
Right.
a couple
Sure.
of years ago. You talk about obviously people talk about the whiskey explosion, but things like cognacs and armagnacs, like there's so many different categories in spirits that, especially the premium categories, are really, really trending. Why do you think that is? I mean, we've been reading that, although craft beer is still growing, the beer consumption in general is down, but spirit consumption over the past 5 years has really been increasing. Do you have any thoughts as to why that might be?
It's really difficult for me to pinpoint it, why it's gone so crazy like it has. I know the international markets are getting into it. I know the Asian markets and those countries are getting our best stuff and stuff that we can't get here in some cases. So I think there's that many more people trying to consume it versus how much is available to be consumed.
I think there's also a lot more high quality premium spirits available, which has a
think that
lot
has
to
a lot
do
to
with it.
Well, the consumer ultimately decides this. If the consumer is going to drink more of this, people are going to make it more available. You start a distillery. If people are coming and drinking your distillates, then obviously that's successful, and more people are going to start distilleries and things like that. That's a public trend, but I think part of it too is people just are more willing right now. The newer generations are more willing to try different things.
I think that's true.
We're stepping out of that over homogenized Betty Crocker era where everything, you can have the same thing whether you're here or in Germany or in Sweden. Like McDonald's flavor profile is the same everywhere you go. Now, there's a genius and a science to that, but I think people also want to try local fare, so to speak.
Well,
nowadays.
sure, that used to be what people were going for.
Right,
That was
right.
that was the thing people wanted to achieve. Is it was about consistency on that scale more than it was about uniqueness.
Right,
or-
and then
or
also there
uniqueness of
was
flavor.
a whole there's a whole plague of restaurants that were out there for making food that no one could complain about. You
Right.
know, like Luby's, for instance. No one can say, "Man, I hate Luby's," because you can always find something that's pretty good at Luby's.
Right.
but nothing's outstanding. At
Right, but
Luby's.
you're not going to go.
Ever,
Oh man, I'm
you know?
craving that Luby's.
But when you
whatever,"
open, when you open something very specific with a lot of flavor, like a Cajun restaurant, you immediately limit your ability to reach more people. But I think more people nowadays are more willing to try different flavors. So.
Well, I think that's true. And if you see, it's why I think, put aside how offended I am by the whole Dilly Dilly campaign by Budweiser. 'Cause
bad.
I freaking hate that whole thing. And I just think they have such gall to try to insult craft beer drinkers while at the same time trying to buy companies that make craft beer and sell it to craft beer drinkers. It's like, pick one or the other. But putting that aside for a minute and just talking about the marketing of it, Budweiser has made a decision to market Bud Light with a phrase now that is, for the many, not for the few. I think that's the biggest
unbelievable, isn't it?
marketing mistake in today's world of
That very much lays bare exactly what their mentality is.
well, it's all
Very
they've
much.
got. I get
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's not like they're going to be able to somehow come up with a slogan that's going to make you think that tastes better. Because
Well, they don't even bother selling the beer anymore. They sell
Yeah.
the ad campaign. They sell
Right.
the packaging.
Right, but it's for
And
the
that's
many,
it.
not for the few. So if you are a mindless sheep and you want to just drink what everybody's drinking, this is the beer for you. But I'm telling you, that's not what consumers are doing now. It's not what makes people feel special.
I
mean,
will tell you this: if I was an avid drinker of that product and I saw that ad campaign, it would offend me.
yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's,
But people want to be able to say, hey, I was out with some friends last night. We tried some of this Whitmeyer's small batch whiskey. Man, let me tell you about it. I really liked it because of this, and that's the way people want to be. They want to talk to you about something that is unique or something that everybody isn't already telling
Tommy
you about.
on our comment feed here says, I think there's a resurgence of cocktails as well. Cocktails drive people to then start experimenting with spirits that go into those cocktails.
And I think
there's a lot of validity
that's
to that.
100% true.
Definitely
And
the craft cocktails.
yeah, and when we did, when we had Peter from the Ready Room and Ritual on and did our cocktail show, those cocktails are like outrageous. There's nothing normal about any of those cocktails.
There was forever a mentality, I'm sure you guys have run into this, a forever mentality that when you have whiskey or spirits of a certain quality, you just don't mix those. You don't put ice in them, blah, blah, blah. There's that, you'll still go into bars and, I always order whiskey with a rock or two in it. And inevitably,
There's
one out of 3 times somebody next to me is like, I can't believe you'd ruin that whiskey that way. I'm like, let me ask you a question. Do you mind if I put a piece of ice in your whiskey?
Did you pay for it?
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
But why do you do that, though?
Well, because I like the experience of the whiskey. I like to try it neat, which you can try as soon as a piece of ice hits it. You can try it, and then you get the neat flavors. And then as it melts in, it dilutes it and opens up a lot more flavors, and you get the whole experience as the ice melts in.
So you get to try...
you get a lot more out of it, I
Yeah.
believe, that way.
I like it.
I'm getting a look from you. What are you thinking about that?
No look. Like I said, hey, it's yours. You drink it how you like to drink it.
How do you experience your whiskey? Are you strictly a neat person?
No, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
More often neat than not, and especially if it's something that I haven't tried before, because that'll let me know whether or not I want to continue drinking.
Right. It does give you sort of the purest...
Right.
Well,
Well, and I'll always try it that way. But back to the original point of this too is there's now a trend where when you drink that level of whiskey, it's okay to mix it.
Right.
It's okay to make a cocktail out of better ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And I will agree that to a certain degree, if you have something that has very delicate flavors, you might be crushing those flavors if you're putting lime and salt on it. However, that's your own choice. And what he said, did you pay for it?
Yeah.
It's yours. Whatever.
Is it what you like? That's the thing. That's why I don't like...
If you want to make an old fashioned out of 30-year-old Glenmorangie, fine, do it.
If you think that it's better, that you enjoy it more, then do it. Like, that's why the Budweiser campaign is stupid, because what you really should drink is what turns you on, not what turns the masses on.
But the Budweiser campaign is going to work exactly for the people that think that that's a good thing.
Well, that's good.
fine.
There's just a lot
Yes.
fewer of them than there used to be
Yeah.
because people are changing. All right, let's talk about the few, not the many. Let's talk about Whitmeyer's, and let's do some sampling. Is this the first one? No, this is the first one we're going to start with. Tell us a little bit about what you brought us here today, and in what way is this different from if I were lucky enough to find a bottle of Whitmeyer's on the shelf?
So this is the most recent thing that we released, and it's honestly all sold out. We had 5 barrels. There was a lot of experimentation involved.
So I'm feeling pretty lucky that we've got a bottle here. Yeah.
It's a single malt whiskey, and you have two different variations here. So 2 different barrels. One came in at 102 proof. One came in at 112 proof. It's 3 different types of malt. I used Maris Otter, Simpson's Golden Promise, and a biscuit malt. And it's 100% malted barley, aged in 30-gallon char number 3 American white oak, and same barrels that I use for making my bourbon. I used 3 different yeast strains, and kind of tested all 5 barrels. Buffalo Bayou and Ryan, definitely good guys, good friends of ours. We got started about the same time. They actually brewed our mash for us, or
nice.
say rather, we brewed our mash on their system, just because we were able to knock it out in about 6 hours versus 6 days.
Right.
Is that the same way they make the wort for the beer? Is that the same system?
It's very much the same.
Yeah,
very much
gotcha.
the same. Only difference is they basically produced the sugar water for me, and I hauled it back up to the distillery and pitched the yeast, let it ferment, and then ran it through the
I want
stills
to point something out about this because while you were talking, I was
doing research.
I was doing research.
Sure.
We have a beer here called Snicker Doodle. This smells like a cookie. This smells like delicious. It's so sweet and chocolatey and wow,
It
like
does
cinnamony.
have some really I get all of that in there. I was just going to say it's got such pleasantness to it.
Thank you.
And I was looking for a better word, but that was the only one I was coming up with.
And
It
the heat in this is in a weird spot.
Yes.
Like usually it's at
Between-
the end or comes back. This is kind of like
between
right,
between the middle and the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's like right before the end,
Yeah.
and then finishes smoother with less heat. That's interesting.
Wow. So you mentioned that these two are quite a bit different in proof. Was that because of preparation? Was one of them in the cask longer? What caused the difference in proof?
These two barrels sat right beside each other the entire time they aged, and they were both, when the raw distillate was placed into the barrel, they were both 110 proof. So one gained a little bit, one lost a little bit.
Do you have any? Is there a scientific explanation for why that might happen?
I'm sure there is, but I couldn't do a very good job at explaining.
That's kind of a beautiful thing about the barrel aging is the barrel is in charge of the flavors at that point.
And it also speaks to what we were talking about earlier. Like, on one hand, you would think consistency would be great in these situations, but on the other, it's so cool that it's different. You know?
I think that would be the difference between like having a core line where you would have to constantly try and keep that blend as exact as you can, and then keep that whiskey as exact as you can, even blending different barrels to make sure that you get back to that same profile versus a single barrel, which allows you to just let the barrel say, hey, this is what it's going to taste like.
Right, and it's bottled directly from the barrel. It's uncut, unfiltered. So
when we say barrel, how big are these barrels? How much liquid do these barrels hold?
the ones that I use predominantly are 30 gallons. The standard kind of in the industry, the big guys in Kentucky, Tennessee, if you will, use almost exclusively 53-gallon barrels.
So break that down to the lowest compound. How many bottles does a 30-gallon barrel equal?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's all over the place. With these, I'll take these 5 as an example. We had one barrel that yielded 45 bottles. We had a few others that were 100, 110. You know, we can get about 120 at barrel proof, at cask strength. Now, you know, if it's 115 proof, and then you add some water to get it down to bottling strength, you can squeeze a few more out of it. But
Right. Is that pretty much how it's always done? If you come in overproof on something, and it's something where you've got, you know, where the product is a certain proof, rather than it being, individual, is it just adding water? Is that how you bring the proof down?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it's done.
It's so interesting.
Universal solvent.
Yeah, it's just so
Now,
interesting because it seems
if
like
this
it would
was-
change the flavor so much as well. You know, as well as the proof.
Well, it will.
It will.
Well, that's why you add water when you're tasting as well. It opens up flavors, so that's obviously going to change the profile a bit. What would a bottle, if that was on the shelf, what would that bottle be selling for?
Before tax, that was an $89 bottle. Yeah.
It's outstanding.
We had,
It really is. I mean, this is one of those things that you just go, this is why life's too short to drink mediocre
like
whiskey.
that cigar I
You
had
know?
last night with
Yes.
this would just be
Oh,
outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It really is good. Okay, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We have more whiskey to taste. We also want to taste the Snicker Doodle Ale, but we'll do that right after coming back from the break. And obviously, we've got some more questions about this and how soon you can get that production cranked up so we can find stuff
Sure.
like this easier in the stores. It's Smoking and Toasting, and it's show number 118. We'll be right back.
All right.
Man, I get like vanilla and toffee.
Oh, it's just, I mean, it's
a lot of stuff going on. in there.
It's just such a pleasant, delicious flavor. I love it. I didn't want to say this in the segment because I didn't want to give the wrong impression, but it's almost. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, and it's show number 118. Our show's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Our guests today, Stuart and Travis from Whitmeyer's, and they brought along some whiskey, the first of which is kind of blowing our minds here a little bit. We're just talking about it in between the segments, how good this whiskey is.
Outstanding.
It really
Thank
is.
you.
And you know, it's you know, we on the show, we're in the very fortunate position of being able to taste, you know, a lot of different things, and it's awesome, and we love doing it. But sometimes you sort of think you won't get pleasantly surprised anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you sort of think maybe, yeah, we've probably, you know, I'm sure it'll be wonderful, but like you sort of get maybe a little immune to the wow. You know, is a good way to put it, you know? And but I got totally wowed by this. I was saying in the break,
Awesome.
This is right where my palate wants to go for whiskey. It's just
I
absolutely
try. I
delicious.
strive to be childlike in my delight when it comes to new whiskeys.
I love that. That's exactly as
That's
you
the
should
picture
be.
I want you to have of me in your mind.
So this should be interesting to go now from this. We talked about how wonderfully pleasant this taste is, to the Snickerdoodle Ale, which is from Community. That was very interesting, almost like a whistle to that opening sound. Guys, I know this is your first time being on the show, but as you can tell, we believe in really high tech sound effects,
Nice.
and so that's how we roll. So, the Snickerdoodle Ale is from Community Brewing, which is in Dallas, I believe. Ian, we've had some community products on the show before. Is that right?
We have, and I can't think of the name of it. I can almost picture the
I remember their logo.
can.
Oop, we'll go back this way one.
We'd have to go back and
Yeah.
we're gonna have to create a chart of stuff we taste.
But I'm really curious about this. This is it's an ale, and it's this is sort of replacing our Christmas ale for the show because we've been doing.
There's not a lot
trying to
on the
let it-
nose on this.
No,
This
you're
is-
right. I was expecting more of the sort of spice and sweetness on the nose.
I mean,
than I'm getting
there's
it.
a little bit there, but I'm just not getting a whole lot of.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that comes later.
There's it's definitely got enough head to it, so you'd expect there to be more aroma.
Wow.
Wow, this is cinnamony,
Mm-hmm.
cinnamon sugary. This
And
is,
I'm definitely getting the Snickerdoodle. I understand where it comes
I
from.
think they nailed Snickerdoodle on this.
Yes, I think they did. Now I will say it's
This is like one of those Snickerdoodles that had the powdery kind of sugary cinnamony stuff sitting on top of it
Yes,
too.
it is such a different profile than the Whitmeyers. Before we sampled, I was thinking these two might pair with each other. I'm not sure that they do. Yeah, it's just such a different kind of sweetness. But you know, you never know until you try something. But
No, they cover up each other a little bit. That's
is community the Brian on the chat said Temptress? Is that where are they the ones that do the Temptress series?
oh yeah, they
Is
are
that Community Brewing?
I think so.
Those are wonderful.
because we've had the coconut temptress, the mint.
Yeah,
Chocolate mint
The
Temptress, quite
chocolate
a
mint
few.
was just outrageous. I really enjoy this. It's not a match with the whiskey, but I really do enjoy it. I don't know that it's something I would want year round.
This
you know?
is-
but for a special thing, having a party, some friends over.
Yeah, this is a fun one. Let's split a can.
Yes,
kind of
exactly.
thing, and quite drinkable at that.
Yep, absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
flavor profiles, it's a little bit much for drinking more than a can of it at a time, I think. But what a nice little departure there.
You mentioned you guys have friendship with the guys at Buffalo Bayou Brewing Company. Have they ever gotten some barrels from you and tried to do some barrel aged stouts, things of that nature?
We've definitely talked about going down that road. I want to say very early on, like year 2, they did a thing for their second year anniversary, where I think it was their gingerbread stout. They put on some. I think it was just wood chips. They didn't have enough for a whole barrel, or it was just one small keg. But the short answer is no, but a little bit.
They have done some wonderful
They're
limited
great.
release beers.
Great guys too.
Just
Well, and their 1836 is just one of those standbys for me.
Yes,
Like, absolutely
I
love
agree.
that beer.
It's probably my favorite in their ongoing line. I think
Yeah.
I think it's just delicious. Some people like the white ale, but
It's funny because if I walk into an establishment that has a whole bunch of beers in 1836, before I even choose, I'll usually go, I'll have that, and then I'll peruse the rest of the beers.
right. Then you're right. It's your good first choice. Like you know you're solid. All
Right, and I'm
let's
not
see what
holding up
else
the
is here.
bartender, you know?
Let's see what else is here. You mentioned that you sell so much of the Whitmeyers there at the distillery. What is the second place that it goes? Do you go to bar accounts next, or do you go to retail accounts next? If you've got enough to send out.
I may be telling you something you already know, but with spirits in the state of Texas and well, the whole country, but especially here in Texas, distilleries can't. We have to use a distributor
work
medium.
through a distributor, right?
You know,
right.
whereas breweries, you're allowed to, up to a point, you can self-distribute. But
So does that mean that once you use a distributor, that they're the ones who kind of decide where it goes?
That's
Is that really the way it works?
Just
Okay,
of it.
all right.
And,
I didn't know that.
So that's a 3-tier system, and then in Texas we even got an additional tier, if you will, with the bars, restaurants, and on-premise.
Right.
Where the distributors don't sell to the bars and restaurants per se. That's the wholesalers like a Specs or
a lot of people,
any number of wholesalers that will sell to bars and restaurants.
Yeah, a lot of people actually don't know that about Specs. Is in addition to being a really strong retailer in this space, they also are a wholesaler that sells directly to bars and restaurants. And so, particularly in the greater Houston area, but also some of the other areas in Texas, a lot of the places where you're going and ordering something at a bar, they actually got that from Specs as their delivery system. So,
that's right.
So what you'll do is you'll then connect with the distributor, and then you don't really have that much say about where they put it in terms of bars.
I can make a suggestion about what I think it ought to end up for retail wise.
If somebody comes to you, if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey,
it's out of my hands," it's out of my hands.
I want
Money's
this
been
in my
exchanged,
bar.
tax has been paid.
Right. If somebody comes to you and says, "I want this in my bar," can you can at least direct them to it, right?
I can kind of work my end. They can work their end, and if it's available, then
right. It's so interesting.
So
it all
I know-
seems more political than you would want it to be.
Yeah, I
That's
know
nuts.
in the beer industry, so I guess that goes down to what you were saying about beer can distribute their own up to a certain amount. Because in the beer industry, they hire a lot of reps that go out and hustle, basically. Hustle and go to bars and talk to the bartenders and the bar owners and here, try my beer. Can I get a tap? They always are looking for that single tap space first and then go from there. But you guys don't have that
No.
at all.
No, we don't have a
I mean,
sales
we can go
force.
talk about it until
Yeah.
we're blue in the face, but the
Right.
distributor has to give it to us.
Legally,
gotcha.
we're not allowed to walk into a liquor store or a bar with a bottle of our product and offer a sample or a taste to a decision maker in that establishment. We can't do it. It's
Gotcha.
It has to
Okay.
be the distributor
Has to be
that does that.
that has to be the distributor that does that.
Interesting. So, and if I'm asking questions that you don't want to answer, I totally understand. But do you have any way? Do you monitor what? Is there a way to monitor what the distributors do? Because obviously these distributors are not just carrying your product; they're carrying other whiskeys and stuff as well. Like, how do you make sure that you are getting the kind of representation that you want from a distributor?
Well, we've been in the area now for
Yeah, you've been around for a
as
while.
mentioned, we've been here for a few years, so I think we've got some pretty good relationships with most of our key customers, and they know that they can call us if they've got an issue, even though we might not be able to resolve it directly. And we haven't really come across any huge issues that warranted.
Did you know any of this stuff when you first started opening the distillery?
I knew it was going to be a challenge, but yeah, I just wanted to make booze and sell it.
So, how many bottles do you guys produce a year?
Oh,
Currently?
that's kind of all over the place. It seems like this last year, I don't even know, because we look in terms of proof gallons, which we report to the federal government, and the state looks at it differently. And we've got all these different reports we have to fill out every month.
Because God forbid they would all look at it the same way and make things easy to report.
Right.
Yeah. Kinda
So
like the
can
music
I get
business.
back to you on that? We're not closed out with the year yet.
Well, okay. So the reason I was going to ask is like, where are you in terms of where you would like to be? Like, what for a small distillery? Do you want to see this get really big, or is there a limit to how big you want to go?
There's definitely a limit to how I think we can stay in Texas and be just fine.
Really?
Long
Interesting.
term.
Yeah.
I'm pretty comfortable with where we're at. We definitely need more of this available.
Right. That's
year
sort of your
round,
first challenge,
and,
right?
And
yeah.
we definitely need to increase that. So that's
I'm
that's
going to
the goal.
second that, by the way. More of this
Yes.
around year round. We
I
want
need more
this.
of that at my house.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, this is a good place to take a break. When we come back, we're going to try another beer, and we're going to try the higher proof version of this. Plus, I have a few more whiskey questions, and I'm sure that Ian does as well. I want to ask you about Texas whiskey, about your take on what's happening in this, in the state of Texas, and why it seems to be a thing. You certainly hear about, Kentucky whiskey, and but you don't hear a lot about other states. You don't hear about Florida whiskey or Arizona whiskey, but you definitely hear about Texas whiskey. So
Sure.
I want to get into why you think that is, and since you're one of the shining examples of Texas whiskey, you're a perfect guy to ask. So we'll get
Sure.
to that coming up, and we'll taste more. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 118.
I'm gonna have to get out
What
of
time
here.
is it?
Time for me to go open up the shop.
Okay.
All right.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, and this is it's the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're brought to you by our good friends and the amazing people at B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth. I say amazing people. Our buddy Jeremiah there is in charge of curating the bar selection, and it is one of my favorite bars in the greater Houston area. He just does such a great job putting together what's there, the selection.
It's not
of what's
a bar
there.
that has a ton of stuff that
No,
you would say, but it's
they've got
so
a lot,
well curated.
but
yeah.
it's not like some places where you go and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bottles. It's more about how well curated it is, about how
and what a
you can
job
always find
what a job
something.
that guy did when we did our whiskey sniff.
Oh my
What
God.
a job did he do with talking to the different
Yes.
different reps from the different
Mhm.
whiskey companies. That was
Mhm.
amazing.
And by the way, don't want to put you on the spot, but we want you to know you are absolutely invited to be part of next year's Whiskey Sniff. We would love to have you there. It was one of the cooler evenings we've ever had. It was just a great event. People had the most wonderful time. Basically, the Whiskey Sniff is where it was based on something that Ian actually does at his house by himself when he's smoking a cigar. He lights the cigar. Correct me,
Yeah.
Ian, if I say this wrong. Lights the cigar, smokes the first half inch or so, gets it on his palate, and then you go in. You've got a decent selection of whiskeys, right? So what do you do from there?
Well, you go in and smell your whiskey, and the one that smells like it goes best with that cigar is the one that's going to go best with the cigar. It's a great pairing tool. What's funny is it's so simple. Like, it's such an incredibly simple thing, and it works every single time.
What I loved about the Whiskey Sniff was not so much that I think people did that to find their pairing, but what I think they did is they used it to see how different cigars and different whiskeys did pair. So I think they would light a cigar, they would try it with one, they would finish off, because it was, not a big glass, small sample. They'd finish that off, and then they'd go and try something else and see how that matched
Well, and it's
up.
ever evolving, too, because once you have the cigar in your palate and you find a whiskey that goes well with it and you have a sample of that whiskey, well, then you now have the whiskey and the cigar in your palate. And then the next thing you try you could go back and try 3 things that you already smelled, and one of them may smell like that's the one I want to go with it, because your palate is ever evolving in that situation.
And I'll give you a perfect example of how things like this can be really worthwhile. My friend and business partner, Pat, is not a whiskey guy. He drinks gin. That's his that's his spirit of choice, and enjoys a few other things. He's open minded, but he's never really become a whiskey guy. He comes to the Whiskey Sniff, enjoys a number of things. I'm over at his house a couple of days ago. He's got a bottle of Four Roses sitting there. You know why? Because he tried it at the Whiskey Sniff, and he thought it was fantastic. And that's it. That just shows you how an event like
and it works with every spirit.
It really does.
Maybe vodka, because vodka has a little less on the nose. But I mean, it works with every spirit. Like
you're right. We had
gins and things like that.
We had another table, and I apologize for not remembering which gin this was, but someone, one of the companies brought a gin that was completely different from any gin that we'd ever tried, and it paired so well with the cigar.
Yeah, it was pretty outrageous.
It was just terrific.
There's a distillery out in Smithville called Bone Spirits, and they make an aged gin called Dirty June that goes amazing with cigars. It doesn't mix with anything.
Is gin something you guys have ever tried?
Yeah, I'm kind of kicking myself for not bringing a bottle of gin.
Oh, well, you know what? we actually don't talk about gin that much on the show, but it's something that we do enjoy, and again, it's another one of those spirits that I understand is just like going crazy. Like people are really
there's a lot of excitement about it. It's still that smallest section in the liquor store.
Right.
And, we age our gin. It's the botanicals are juniper, coriander, orange peel. I distill it with whole cinnamon sticks, then age it on sassafras wood for about 3-4 months.
Okay, we're gonna have to try that.
I will tell you that based on my particular palate, that doesn't sound really good to me all by itself, but I know that when it is all together in the gin, that I will like it because of other things that I've had. I mean,
now is your gin very juniper forward, or is it a little more just overall?
The juniper's
botanical?
there, but it's definitely taken a backseat
a lot of times
to the other.
When you age it, the juniper tends to kind of
take
mellow out a little.
Oh,
bit.
to mellow out. Okay, gotcha.
It seems.
Well, we'll have to have you back because we'd love to try that. In fact,
I have a question for you, Cruz.
Yes.
What did you do to this can?
That can is a little beat up, but
this can has been.
I had to get it because I really wanted us to try this based on the name. This is the next beer we're trying, and it is from the Texas Ale Project. These guys are based out of Dallas, and the name of this beer is 100 Million Angels Singing Double IPA. And so we don't do a lot of doubles on the show, and part of the reason is because Ian is not as much of an IPA guy as I am, but I have a tendency to like the IPAs that are maybe a little more sessionable, a little less of a hop bomb and more citrusy. I love the whole juicy craze that's been a big part of the last year. But this just looked really, really interesting to me. And the fact that they were willing to name it 100 Million Angels Singing made me think we got to at least try it. That's marketing.
No pressure. Nothing to live up to there.
But it's marketing. It made me try it. I might have passed on it.
It smells good.
Had there been a different name that was less, shall we say, over the top.
Like you could make it. This smells pleasant enough to where you could make a candle out of this. Like that's
no, we know we've had IPA soaps because we've had those on the show before, but candles is a great idea. I'd love a good hoppy candle in my house. Okay, so
this is good.
You like this. Now I'm surprised because I don't. When we go double IPA, I kind of expect it to not be to your palate. Because of
you have to
hops.
take a sip of this and think about it for a minute because it actually evolves as it goes down. It's immediately kind of a hop bomb.
Yes, hops
but
right off the bat.
You almost expect it to go pine cone on you towards the end. You know that feeling like when you chew on a pine cone. It's a lot.
But it doesn't really go there.
But it doesn't do that. Yeah. It actually mellows out. It's like the malt is on the end of this and smooths out into. There's a little dryness to it, but it's not bitter at the end. This is actually interesting.
Travis, when it comes to beer, where do your tastes lie? What's your favorite sort of style?
I'm definitely more of an ale guy. I'm not a huge fan of IPAs.
I have no problem drinking this. This is
well, and Ian's kind of the same way. Although he's liking this, but and he's liked a number of IPAs we've had on the show, but that's not his first.
No, I'm way more into the.
You love the Scotch ales and the porters and
barley
stouts
wines and love that stuff.
If it's huge, Ian loves it. Like when it comes to beers, like he just loves those big beer flavors.
That's why it's funny that we kept talking about 1836 earlier. That's like my later. I'm going to drink a few of these beer of choice.
Well, you know what I love about 1836, and we really have to have those guys on the show.
We keep coming back to it today. It's awesome
because it's such a good beer. But what I love about it is it has this this chocolate on the finish that's almost like an after you've already like swallowed it and you're not taking another drink, and then you like breathe in for the first time, and there's this like chocolate.
I see what
that
you're
is
saying.
a
I think
wonderful
a
surprise.
better descriptor of that, like for me anyway, is more like that malt powder kind of.
Well,
flavor.
it is. We're probably talking about
Which
the
is very
same thing,
chocolatey
and I'm just
in
describing
its
it as
flavor.
chocolate. But you're right. It's there's a maltiness. I'm old enough that I actually remember when you could go when I was a little kid and you could get a malt.
Yep, I
like
remember that.
at even some of the like fast food places would actually have malts. You remember Griff's Burgers?
No, I never.
Okay, yeah, well, let's see. That's because of how old I am.
Don't know.
When I was a kid growing up, they had Griff's Burgers, and Griff's had malts, and so I remember that taste. You probably remember it best from malted milk balls.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah,
but I
okay.
remember getting like the real deal malts. If you ever got a real deal malt, you always had a couple little balls of malt that would form that were just the powder, and you'd get a sip, and you'd have that powder out in your mouth, and it was wonderful.
That also happens with Nestle's Quick, by the way. Just
The
in case.
powder, not
the powder,
not the squeezy.
So yeah, I really like this. Is this pasture? Is this not something that your palate appreciates as much?
I can get through it, but it's not something that I
Not
would
something
buy.
you would buy. Well, I'm pretty impressed. Ian, let me ask you this: this or a Dogfish Head, something in the 60 to 90 minute range.
90 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good, but it's not that.
Yeah.
Like that to me is just one of the pinnacles of the style.
So that would be more like 200 Million Angels Singing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I will tell you that this is a good beer. You can taste the quality in it. You can tell that they really set out to make a nice quality product. I love that it says double IPA, pine period, resin period, citrus, and I'll agree with all that. It's interesting that it's as malty as it is. It is 9.2%, which makes me almost like it a little better.
That's so you. It's so you. By the way, our buddy Brian on the comments mentioned that he corrected himself. Lakewood Brewing brews Temptress and Community. They have the Imperial Stout called Legion, which I believe we've tried on the show before. So, by the way, also from
Yes,
the comments,
that is correct.
Matt Crow chimed in and said, I got in late on this. What is the name of the distillery brand? We're talking Whitmeyer's, and we're going to talk some more Whitmeyer's. In fact, I think maybe it's time to go to the 112 proof. Now,
I'm going to give a shout out to my CCSD guys out there,
Yes.
by the way. Let's do this.
Yeah, explain again what is different from the bottle that we had earlier and this bottle. Is it only just
A different barrel, different barrel, different yeast strain.
Oh, different yeast strain. Okay,
that's it.
And would you expect the different yeast strain to have any impact on why this one came out at a higher proof, or is that not part of the?
Not with respect to proof. But at the time they were each put into their respective barrels, and they were both 110 proof.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that the change just happened over time.
So this one picked
smells
up a bit?
nothing like the other one.
Yeah, I'm.
Like I smell like
Well, you're right.
mineral.
Yes, it's got. There's a
pine,
really
resin.
Pleasant, yeah. No, there's a really pleasant minerality to this that wasn't a part of the last one at all. The last one had the flavors were so like almost dessert like, not in a cognac kind of way, not in a liqueur kind of a way, but they were almost dessert like. And this is completely different. This is more like
So this is
minerality.
With this process, it's as close as America can get to a Scotch whiskey.
Now, what do you mean when you say that?
Well, the Scots have all their own rules,
Right.
and we have our rules here in the States.
So obviously, it's single malt.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's a technical definition in the U.S. for malt whiskey, and it kind of follows along the same lines as rye and bourbon. It's got to be 51% malt, yada yada yada, or malted barley.
Mm-hmm.
And the one of the biggest things in there is malt whiskey in the U.S. has to be aged in new oak, and in Scotland, most of what they use is used
oak. Yeah.
And so that makes a huge difference.
So this is so interesting to me how amazingly different these two bottles are. Like night and day different. And I love them both, but they almost don't even taste like they're the same.
There's
thing.
There's a universal chocolatiness to both of them that really says, okay,
Yep.
I come from the same stock, basically. But this flavor, the flavor on this one is very upfront, and then the first, like, third of the flavor profile, if you ask me, like, as it crosses, and then finishes nice and smooth. And I love that mineral watery kind
There's a
of
bit of
mineral
that on
water
the finish,
aftertaste.
yeah.
That, to me, is so good. It's like Austin water. Have you ever tasted Austin tap water? It's delicious. It has that nice
it has
mineral
more
flavor.
minerality to it.
Houston
than-
water is nothing like that.
So, what this brings to mind for me is how difficult it must be as a distiller when you have your, let's say, your primary, like your baseline product that you want to be consistent when you release. You want every bottle of that goes to the stores to have the same flavor, the same, the same vibe to it. How difficult it must be to find consistency when you've got two barrels next to each other. Yes, there's a different yeast strain, but like, wow, how difficult is that to maintain that consistency with what goes out, and how do you do it? How do you blend for that?
I just kind of follow the same steps, start to finish, no matter what I'm making, and when it comes down to making cuts, I tend to go a little deeper than I think most do, which yields less product, but I think it makes a better product.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
you can taste the quality in this all day long.
Now, when I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to point out, when you say single barrel or single malt, when you put those two words together, those are actually telling you two different things. And a lot of people think that single malt is a phrase meaning there's one malt. That's not what it means. Would you like to explain that? This is a little whiskey 101 here.
Yeah.
Well, with and here locally, so it's not confused. Technically, there is no such thing as a single malt.
There's no one malt, right?
It's not a single type of malt. What this is it's made under one roof, grain to glass, at my distillery. It's 100%.
And that's
malt.
your single.
And exactly. So
Right.
that's single. And so if we at some point in the future in America decide to adopt a definition and kind of follow what Scotch single or single malt Scotch whiskey would be, then kind of be along those lines. But,
Right. So what basically this is, like, when you're talking about Scotch as well, the single refers to this is all made basically under one roof kind of thing. And then the malt refers to the mash bill that you're making. So it's actually, when you see single malt, that's telling you two different things going on with the whiskey there.
Is it perceived by maybe the consumer that's not as educated about whiskey and stuff that single malt means a higher quality, and that there's a reason why that should be better? I mean, because we've had some amazing single malts, we've also had some amazing, like, blended bourbons that were just like way over the top.
I don't think there's anything wrong with a blend. However, when you're talking things that are single barrel, single malt, I know, just for me at my little tiny distillery, and I have to believe the thinking is the same anywhere you are. If you come across a really nice barrel, you don't want to do anything to it, and you're going to hold that. And nobody else is going to get it, and that's going to be your baby, and you're going to walk it all the way out. And whatever's left over, well, that's your blend.
I get it. I totally get it.
Well, so I think blended is a little less expensive to make too, because you can blend and you can source your blend from a lot of places. A single means it's got to come from one spot.
Depends on what you're blending, I guess. But yeah, the idea of the single may be much more difficult to control costs on that. I don't know. Tell me, is that correct?
So shout out to the Houston Bourbon Society. Now we have ventured into this idea of blends.
Yeah, we love, by the way, Chris Hart and the Houston Bourbon Society. We think those guys are awesome.
So I kind of have to, want to watch my tongue because it's important to me because of all these the technical things. So blends versus batch, and I could get nerdy with this stuff, but there'll always be somebody in the group that'll say, well, that's not correct. And a lot of times that guy's me, so I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the
Totally understand.
I certainly don't mind being corrected, just FYI.
Yeah.
I have no problems with that. So if I said anything wrong, please let me know.
So, well, yeah, generally speaking, blending makes sense. I mean, you're throwing a few things together. But there's always a technical definition, and when you're talking blended whiskey in the U.S., it means you can do a lot of stuff to it. You can add neutral spirit, vodka. You can add artificial colors and flavors. You can proof it down. I mean,
it seems to me that
versus batching, or taking whole barrels and then just putting whole barrels together and still not doing anything to it. Or maybe just adding a little bit of water. There are definitely some differences.
So it seems to me that batching is more about the purity of the concept, and blending is more about we want to blend for the very best flavor we can come up with.
I refuse to buy an 80 proof whiskey. I won't do it.
Why is that?
Straight or otherwise, because it's the absolute minimum by law. If it's even if a bourbon labeled as bourbon or rye, it can't be bottled at less than 80 proof, and that means to me that they have done the absolute minimum to get the maximum. I like barrel proof stuff, single barrels, whole barrels, and I can add water myself.
Ian's that way too, but I thought it was just because he really liked getting drunk. So
well, there's a little of A, a little column B there on that one. Let's go for C.
Let's go for C.
And I'm not just speaking Spanish.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay, so this is fascinating to me, and I want to come back to this in the final segment. Also, you should know that I received a text a moment ago from Keegan, who works here at the company. Who says, I did bring a Whitmeyer's Harvey bottle, if you have any interest. I can bring it in. Tell us about Harvey.
So that was a thing that we put out. It was a 13-barrel release. And
I'm just texting back yes right now.
There's still a couple of bottles peppered around.
I saw one at Specs in Tomball.
Yep, it was
about a couple weeks ago.
It was about 2,000 bottles that we put out, and they, I think for the most part, stayed right around here. And Specs got most of them, if not all of them. Again, that's something that
we may have to try some Harvey in the next segment. I will tell you that this just sort of a very amateur take on these two things that we've tried. This latest and higher proof reminds me much more of like a Scottish single malt. The earlier one reminds me more of some of the best bourbons and blended whiskey that I've had in terms of the flavor profile that you got to with this thing. And it's actually amazing to me that you got to it without blending.
You're not the first person to say that.
Okay, so at least I'm
along those lines.
At least I'm not nuts. So this makes me feel good. All right, so we will be back and maybe have some Harvey. Plus, we didn't get to it last week, but we are definitely getting to it today. Prairie Artisan Ales Paradise. It's an Imperial Stout brewed with coconut and vanilla.
There you go.
Ian, I think you're going to love this.
I love Prairie brews.
I'm hoping so. We'll be right back for our final segment. It's Smoking and Toasting live with Whitmeyer's in the studio and loving it. Why does Keegan bring whiskey to work, by the way?
So
your work.
I don't know if you knew, but
Keegan is full of beer.
Oh, yeah.
Keegan's wife and I don't know if he told you this story.
Yeah, we've had her on the show too.
Kristen and I were in elementary school together.
Oh, no kidding, really?
On the beach in Hawaii.
Welcome back, my friends. This is Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 118. 118 shows, Ian, and no one has stepped in to make this stop.
Right?
It's always amazing to me that we managed to last one more week. We are the radio program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. You can find us on all kinds of different platforms. We're now on Facebook Live. A lot of people consume the show that way and enjoy it. I know a lot of people like to listen to us in the car. They probably are listening on Apple Podcasts or on Google Play,
or even Stitcher,
or directly from SoundCloud, or there's so many different ways to get the show. We're on TuneIn, and you can also find us on YouTube. Which is a really cool way. I sometimes, when I'm up late working at night, I have a tendency to work on two computers at one time, and that's mostly because I work on one computer while on the other computer I watch crap on YouTube. So that's a fun way to consume the show.
I just want to point out, I love this Prairie. We get this
Prairie Artisan Ales. Is that you got that on the camera there?
This Prairie Artisan Ales here. Am I holding that in the right spot?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, now I can see what I'm doing. Okay. I love the label on this. This is somewhere between Magnum PI and Miami Vice.
Well, Prairie is one of those interesting
Like,
companies that they don't print on the can; they use a regular
they
silver
stick
can,
something on
and they put a label on, so they get real creative with their labels. And yeah, you're right. In
I'm
between
okay
Magnum
with
PI
this too. The can itself not being printed, I think that's kind of fun and probably offers a lot more.
Well, it's something that makes them different, I think,
Yeah.
because you can always see when you're looking in the in the beer cooler or on the aisles, you can always see when a Prairie is there because
A lot of times when you go to a brewery too, they'll do that. They'll just have the cans and you order a crowler and then they stick the label on there for whichever beer you bought. Or in some
That's
cases,
true.
they'll
That's
have
true.
one label that they'll write the name of it on. But whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and open this.
Why don't you? Oh, that was nice. That was
I got a little
really,
bit of
really
that
nice.
foam on the mic too.
Yeah, and you're probably going to enjoy that. Actually, would be my guess.
This is the color of used motor oil, by the way. I know that because it kind of splattered on me.
see, I already know you're going to love this.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna
got
make sure I have at least one of these swabbed out so that we can see the color of this.
okay. Ian, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this about a 13?
It is 13%. Yes.
Yeah. So this is
Which
just
means
got
I'm
you,
automatically loving
you
this.
automatically love it. Yes.
Like it's gonna have to be a very bad beer for me to not enjoy
So
it.
we ran out of our clear cups, so we'll be using Travis and I will be using the red cups, but Ian is
I saved the.
is going back to the clear one so that you guys can see A, the color, and B, the viscosity of this beer. So,
Yes, and it has that.
Wow. Well,
Okay, so
honestly, Ian,
holding
it looks
this
like,
up here.
It looks like coffee. It doesn't look like beer. It looks like coffee.
This is a thick liquid right here.
Wow.
Like there's
Interesting.
almost no carbonation.
Tell me what you're getting on the nose because maybe it's the bigger cup, but I'm not getting a whole lot. There's something there. I can't quite get it.
Well, it says it's brewed with the coconut
It's
and vanilla.
coconut
I
and
smell
vanilla.
the coconut, but it's
Coconut. I love coconut. That's one of
it's
my
not a
favorite.
real obvious. It's not like a sweet like a Mounds. Is Mounds the ones that have coconut in it? Or is
Yes,
that almond?
coconut and
Yeah,
almond,
Mounds, right. So it's not like a Mounds coconutty kind of smell. It's more of a fresh coconut kind of smell to it, or a bitter coconut kind of smell, if that makes sense. It doesn't smell like sweet coconut. I'm also getting just that classic kind of stout and malty scent. None of it's really huge, though. It's not a very huge smelling beer.
So I'm going to tell you something interesting, and I really like this. First of all, let me tell you, but secondly, I almost got sushi, and maybe it's the warm white rice, maybe it's wasabi. I don't know what it is I'm getting here, but it's
There's
not,
a little soy
it's-
sauce to this.
It's not necessarily fishy. Maybe it's the soy sauce.
there's
Maybe
a
that's
little
what I'm
soy
getting.
sauce to this.
Yeah, it's not fishy at all, but that's what it is. It's soy sauce. I think that.
And that's not a bad thing. But now some beers aged too long can go literally straight soy sauce
Well,
flavor.
this doesn't have that. This
This has
is
a little
pleasant.
bit of that. I think that's what you're coming up with because it's not fishy. Like
Right, no.
I get what you're saying, but it's not fishy.
When I said sushi, no, it doesn't taste like fish. That's for sure. But it is very pleasant, and I love sushi anyway. But it's very pleasant, though. Very pleasant.
Taking like a, kind of a rice type of
Yes, right. So I'm not
rice
crazy
wasabi
about
soy kind of
Yes,
thing. Going
yes.
No, yeah, yeah.
but in a
I'm
very
with you.
pleasant way. Like now, usually when I do eat sushi, I have a tendency to go for the much lighter, sort of like the Japanese beers, like the Kirin or the Sapporo or something like that. But
this just leaves your entire mouth watering after you take a swallow. This is like all my like saliva glands are just going nuts right now.
so one of the things I'm noticing, Ian, and I just got a hold of a whole bunch of new ones that will be once we do Ian's Crazy Beer Show, which I'm sure will be, heavy with these. But once we get past that, I just got a hold of a whole bunch of new ones that we'll be trying over the weeks of January and February. But one of the things I'm noticing is that it seems like all of the small craft breweries that are cropping up, they're all trying to do some really big beer, to kind of put themselves on the map in that way. And I'm not against this. This is.
Well, I think
this is a positive thing,
the
but it's
trend is
really-
you have to have some kind of lager, some kind of sessionable beer, whether it's
Probably
a
have to have an
lager
IPA.
pilsner or whatever. And you have to have an IPA. IPAs are just like, even though the IPA craze has gone down substantially, it's still like one of
It's
the
a
most
staple.
popular
It's a
styles.
staple,
Yeah, so you have to have that. I think after that, you have to have a beer that legitimizes your artisanship, and I think that goes into big beers, whether it's
Stouts or porters or
some kind of barrel aged
Scotch ale, barrel aged, yeah.
Which I love all those. By the way.
As the heavier beers go, Ian, would you put this one in the top 50%?
Everything
how do you like
Prairie
this?
makes is very, very quality. Like, they don't make anything less than outstanding quality. As far as the flavor profile goes, this is not one of my favorite flavor profiles of theirs.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'd buy this again, but this is something about Prairie, too, is every time I see that name, I will try it.
Because of the quality they've shown you in the past, right?
But then again, if you're watching for Prairie taps at a bar, you're going to a bar that obviously knows a lot about beer.
Yeah.
And two, it's almost never going to be the same beer twice.
Right.
Which means every time you go up there, you're going to get something new. Their birthday beer, I'm going to bring a birthday. I think I have a birthday beer at the house. This one is going to be one of my
Prairie birthday beer?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's going to be one of my that I bring last. And that's one of those that I absolutely love.
By the way, I'm getting an Uber for that show, just so you know.
I should get Brian to pitch in a beer or two since he's
absolutely
he's part of our show now on the comments.
Absolutely. I love it. I will say about this, I'm not getting a whole lot of it mentions it's brewed with coconut and vanilla.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting a whole lot of either one of those notes.
If you told me coconut or vanilla were there,
Here's the funny thing:
believe
is look for the vanilla, and it's in a place where it never is on a drink like this. Is right on the tip of the tongue at the very beginning, and then it's just gone like that.
Interesting.
That's where I notice it. It's funny how it shows up in that, and it's kind of a funny place for it. It's where you never expect it. You know, and then the whole finish.
I get a little of that.
Is more dry coffee and chocolatey and coconut.
Yeah, you get the chocolate.
That coconut astringency.
teriyaki.
See, I'm with
And
you. See,
soy.
I keep going back to that soy teriyaki. Honestly, it reminds me of a very pleasant piece of sushi, not the fishy, like maybe one of the fish that's not as fishy tasting, so it doesn't overwhelm the flavor of like the rice and the seaweed and the soy, right?
And you're not just being nice about it. It's definitely not bad, but
today's
it's
episode
there.
is called Sushi Beer.
Sushi. Honestly, probably wouldn't be a big hit, but I'm just trying to call it like I see it here, and I think it's very
This is
very
this is
interesting.
like, I'm glad I tasted this. I'm probably not going to buy this one again, but I love Prairie's beers. They're so
So
awesome.
I'm looking forward to the birthday beer next week from.
I'm pretty sure I have a bottle of that's going to go on that.
Ian's Crazy Beer Show. So, all right. So, our friend and my coworker Keegan, who you mentioned, by the way, that you went to what was it, elementary school with Keegan's wife?
So Keegan's wife Kristen and I were in elementary school.
Wow, that's crazy. How small
together,
the world is.
And it's funny because she does kind of the same. She's definitely in the spirits industry.
She's been on our show.
Yeah, we've had her on
there
the
you
show
go.
with Deep Eddie, and we tasted plenty of delicious flavored vodkas, and it was a wonderful show.
Yeah. So that's really cool. And so yesterday we're friends on Facebook, and she messaged me and said, "Hey, give Keegan a high five, and I can't wait to hear what you say."
Well, this is interesting because Keegan had texted me during the show and said that he had a bottle of Harvey. And so, tell me about this. Where did this come from, and what's the story?
So we're definitely shifting gears with Harvey from the single malt. Harvey is a bourbon whiskey. And it's a 13-barrel batch we released right after Harvey.
And by the way, your signature's on the bottle because Keegan came in during the break, offered us the bottle, but wanted you to sign it. So,
right. And there's still a couple of these out there at various spec stores.
Like I said, I saw it just...
I don't know where exactly.
I think last week I saw it at the Tom Ball one.
Ian, could you maybe, seriously give me a chance to try this before you tell everybody where it is so they can go grab it?
Noted.
No, I'm kidding, but
so, it's a 2-year-old bourbon, and I bottled it at 86 proof, 13 30-gallon barrels. It's definitely, if we're comparing it to the single malt that's on the table, it's going to be considerably thinner.
Right. Which
you know
makes
what?
Sense.
You guys tell me.
I give up. Let me hear about it.
See, I'm loving it on the nose.
I noticed you have a very chocolately theme through everything that comes out of your
Is that
distillery.
consistent in all the stuff you do?
That's definitely there, in just about everything. Whiskey.
That's a good thing.
Now, I really, really like this. You're definitely right that it's a thinner, mouthfeel to it than what we were trying earlier. And you can tell that the proof is not quite as high. But, boy, the flavor is delicious.
Yeah. This is interesting because this has almost no heat.
I agree. Like, this would be a wonderful...
Either that or I've been drinking a lot.
Well, it's possible, yes. But this would be wonderful for people who are afraid of whiskeys, or afraid of bourbons.
Right. I wanted to make it more approachable, and that's why I dropped the proof on it for people that have been wanting. And it's an intimidating thing, man. It's intimidating.
Sure. What did this sell for retail?
It's in the 70s.
Yeah, this is good.
I like it a lot.
Mid-70s.
This has a lot more aftertaste.
Yes. Well,
a lot of that, even more than that last one that we tried. A lot of that mineral water kind of aftertaste that I particularly enjoy, but it lingers a lot longer.
Well, it doesn't have the heat, but the aftertaste that's there does stay with you for longer.
Yes.
Definitely, yeah.
It's a nice warm aftertaste too.
So we've tasted 3, all very different iterations from what you're doing, and these I'd say all 3 of them in their own individual way are really outstanding. How I don't want to ask as dumb a question as how do you do it, but how do you do it? Like how do you put these things? Because it can't be easy, or I'd be doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's got to be something. Some trick that you have, some knowledge or understanding that you have that's leading you towards these being of the craft quality that they are.
I don't let anybody else influence me. We're small. We're still small. Even though we're one of the older distilleries in the state, we're certainly not one of the larger ones.
Right.
A lot of them that started about the same time. They've got distribution in a lot of different states, but at the same time, I don't hear here locally, which is what I ultimately care about. It's my home.
Right.
I don't hear people raving about that stuff, and so I sit back and I say, okay, well, what is it that they're doing? Well, money change hands, and all these people get involved. I very truthfully, from start to finish, walk it through, and if there's something in the process that I don't like, I rip it out of there. And if you're making a whole bunch and trying to meet a certain demand, and you've got everybody and money influencing you, I mean, we're 100% family owned and operated. We don't owe anybody any money but ourselves, and that's
which is a wonderful thing, actually.
So
I think it's where real artisanship and artistry can come into play, because let's face it, think of it in music business terms, right? If you are an artist that is completely independent and you don't have any label looking over your shoulder telling you got to do this, you got to make it more this, more that in order to get a hit single, whatever, you're going to make the music that is real to you, that is legitimate and true to wherever your musical brain and taste goes. Now, that doesn't mean it'll be good, but let's assume you're good at what you do, right? If you're good at what you do, no one is being allowed to dilute what you're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't sell more copies like some of the other distilleries that you mentioned that have, that maybe a label's advice would help you sell more records. But there's something brilliant about discovering that artist as a music consumer, right? Something brilliant about discovering that artist who is not compromised, who really is a beautiful and wonderful artist, and hasn't sold out, let's use that horribly overused term, hasn't sold out, and really being able to connect with what they're doing. And to me, that's what this reminds me of, is that it's a way that there's a certain purity to what you're doing that I think is remarkable.
Well,
and if this is to your liking from a palate standpoint, it's going to be
you can hope
amazing
that other
for you.
people like it as well.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think we started this show to do. The number one reason we started the show, and
Absolutely
we've always admitted
was samples.
Yes, but beyond that, part of what we wanted to do was communicate to people when we found things that we thought were amazing, that maybe they were big and hugely well known, maybe they weren't. I mean, we will be just as happy to tell you how much we love a Samuel Adams Boston Lager, which you can get in pretty much any store in the United States, as we are to tell you about something that you're going to have to really work.
Well, the
hard
bottom
to
line
find,
is, what's that old phrase? Drink like no one's watching.
Right. I think that is a good. I think that
Did I get that right?
if that's not an old phrase, I think you should trademark it, my friend, because I think you found one. Wow. Well, I have to say, this has been. I'm going to be honest with you. This has been a different show than I was expecting, but I've really enjoyed it. Just being able to drill down a little bit on these things and being able to taste these whiskeys and talk about what we're getting out of them and how wonderful it is. And each of these, to me, these are all whiskeys that should be in my bar. All three of them. For very different reasons. And that's that's. It's not that my bar is that important, but it is to me. And and if it's something that I'm saying these all need to be in there, then that's something I'm going to be working on and working to do. And that's about the highest recommendation that I can give.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
And you've talked about what all these are retail wise, and I think they're all totally on point from a price standpoint too. Because there's sometimes we come on
Price
the show
versus quality makes it.
Right, we'll try things and that's fantastic, but I am not going to buy a $300 bottle of it. You know what I mean? Like as wonderful as it is, and as thrilled as I am to taste it, and as much as I could recommend it if that is in your price range, it's not something that I can do. But these are all a way to, I think about having people over and pulling these out of the bar and pouring them and having people taste them, and how impressed people would be with these, and that's to me about as good of a recommendation as I can get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. We would like to right now invite you back. You can bring more whiskeys. You can bring gin. You can bring.
We have to do the gin now.
Anything that you're working on, we would love to have you come.
Yeah.
on.
Anytime you have something new coming out or something going on, please let us know.
Yeah, we would love to have you come on. In fact, if you want to just come back next week for Ian's Crazy Beer Show and sample the beers, you'd be welcome to do that. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
When is it? Next week? Yeah.
Show number 119 next week, right here on Smoking and Toasting.
Yes, and I promise you, no loggers will be harmed during the shooting of this episode.
That's always good to know. Ian, my friend, I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. You have your glass is surprisingly empty. I think
I'm going to have to get more of this particular one.
See what you reached for. Yes,
yeah, the one that you
yes,
that's the one that I.
No, I just want to
I
say
really want to try this with a cigar.
This has been our second year of doing Smoking and Toasting, and it has by far been the most fun year that we've done.
Congratulations!
And so we're as we enter Christmas time, and we just want to say thank you to everybody who's been a part of it, and Merry Christmas. Thanks to Adam on the Wheels of Steel, and have a wonderful week, my friends. Have a great Christmas, and we'll be back next week at this same time, same channel for Ian's Crazy Beer Show.
Also coming up in the near future, Pipe Smoking 102.
Oh, that's right, number 102. We got to do that, man. I'm breaking out my pipe this week.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, very excited.
Nobody smokes pipe anymore.
Oh, you would be surprised. Have a great week, kids.
Woo!
I can get into smoking pipe.
You know what's funny though is I find that it's generally, to me, it's more of a winter thing than it is a summer thing.